Dance Stories Volume 1 podcast. I am Alexandra.
This is Valerick Molinary.
And we have here Yesenia Lauzurique, which we're so happy to have. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. This is really fun.
Okay, so we're going to have a really fun conversation with you. And the first question that we have is, introduce yourself and tell us, for how long have you been writing your belly dance story?
Well, gosh. So I started belly dancing around the Shakira El Colón era. And I've taken, breaks here or there. So that was when I was about 14. So it's been
another teenager.
Another one, yeah. We're very similar. We got similar stories.
Yeah. So I started, with Maria Jamal, and it was, definitely a very awakening experience. She's very expressive. I did have to break once she moved from closer to my area to Pembroke Pines because I didn't drive. I was a teenager. So I took a break until I was about 18, 19, and then I restarted. So at Belly Motions.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a while. We also started around the same time. We're almost the same age.
Right.
Like 1 year apart or something.
Mm-hmm.
We're the same age, Yessie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, another teenager. You too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know you guys have history together, but Yesenia, it's a recent addition to my life.
Yeah, that's sweet.
And I think that thanks to Belly Dance Stories, we are kind of like bonding more now.
Mm-hmm.
And for the people that are watching and that they don't know, Yesenia helped us with the lighting at the show Belly Dance Stories, which was a great, oh my God, addition for the production. I was super happy with the lighting that you did.
That's great.
For everything.
That's great.
And lighting is such an important element of dancing. And with that, you have a bachelor's in science and communication and a major in theater. Tell us about your theater background and how does it impact and inform your creative self?
Boy, so that's a really, really deep question. It 110% has impacted every single thing I do when it comes to teaching and especially choreography. One of the main things is visuals. Mm-hmm. So especially when I began teaching, Middle Eastern dance was always created a little bit like a solo.
Yes.
And it was, which of course makes sense because that's the origin. So even when you had a group, yeah, there would be some elements here or there that would be specific to a group. But for the most part, it was kind of something that a soloist could do. More stationary, of course, than a soloist. But for the most part, it was something a soloist could do, but just in many bodies. So one thing that I started to do quickly because of my theater background was I wanted to do choreographies that were very specific to having many bodies, that could only be pulled off by many bodies. And instead of choreographing very like to oneself, which is very common in Middle Eastern dance, of course, I wanted to choreograph for that last row, like if it was Broadway, right? So I really wanted it to be, because in Broadway, it's kind of like an unspoken secret, or it's a well-known secret, that you probably don't want to sit in the first row, like at least for musical theater. Kind of like the movie theater, it's too close.
You want to have the whole picture.
Right. You want to sit in the middle of the orchestra. So that's kind of how I choreograph. So it looks better from afar than it does from the front. If you sit in the front, or if you're one of those relatives that likes to record only your loved one, you're gonna miss a lot of action. So
we love those.
We love those. It's great. I get it. I have a lot of those in plays and stuff where I'm just sitting there reacting to another actor because my family would record only me. I get it. I've been there. So, but yeah, that's the thing. If you do that, you're gonna miss a lot of action because everything is made for the group, pretty much everything, right? So that's number one. The storytelling is another one. So I like to tell stories. I like choreographies that even if they don't necessarily have a tangible story, there's a beginning, middle, and an end. And the other thing it did was I started teaching at a very small community theater for the city of Hialeah when I was 18 as a voice and drama teacher. So that was because of my theater background. And the program was small but mighty. Everybody really cared about the program. And pretty quickly, I started teaching belly dance. And I was able to learn from the classical dance teachers there a lot about formations and the transitions and things that I hadn't really gotten to learn before. So, and also there was this phenomenal teacher, you know, she would teach ballet, jazz. Her name currently is Ariela Rodriguez, and watching her, and my boyfriend was the one that pointed this out. He said, she's the only one here who choreographs with dynamics, and they build and build and build. Like, even if it's the same song and there's no rhythmic change or anything, the choreography builds and builds and builds. So you stay interested from the beginning to the end. So that was also one thing that when he said that, boom, a light bulb went off, and I just immediately understood what that meant, and I started to incorporate that as well. So I was able to learn from the other teachers there a lot that I don't think I could have learned anywhere else, because it just wasn't super common at the time with belly dance groups. It's something that, and I think it is something that you can't pick up when you see it once. You have to kind of be exposed to it constantly.
And I hear you mentioning a lot musical theater.
Yes.
And it's such a complex, multidisciplinary also genre. And you're a singer.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more in, like, what's that training look like?
So one thing that I do always say kind of helped a lot with my choreography is my musical training, because it helped me to pick up melodies and music really well. And so I choreograph to those melodies really well. So and that you don't always find in the dance world either, you know, because a lot of times they're following the beat, you know, and they might play around with that beat. They might go, you know, double time or single time, you know, or half time, but they don't always follow that melody. So one thing that helped me do was pick up to really, point out that melody and follow it and kind of sing with the body. You know, that was one thing that always really, that made,
sing with the body.
that always really, especially with me as a soloist, I always I always wanted that, to sing with the body, everything in, I remember once I had a vocal note, so I couldn't sing for a while, and that was really depressing because I was like at the peak of my singing experience. So I would instead, to kind of try to compensate for that, I would, instead of where I would be singing at home in my bedroom, I would instead put on that same exact music that I wanted so badly to sing, but I would dance to it. So I was able to, to get out, that need in that way. So that has definitely impacted, my choreography and my teaching in general quite a bit. And the other thing that it did help, at least for a while, is that it helped me pick up and teach the flutter, the belly flutter and things like that, because it's using the exact same muscles as singing, so it's kind of right. And it kind of helped me to teach it in maybe a different way, like kind of helped me to wrap my mind around in a different way to be able to express it to a student. So, so it's things like that often, it's surprisingly how much they show up in the belly dance, in my belly dance teaching. It's kind of, I find different ways all the time for it to kind of influence the way that I teach and the way that I'm able to explain something to a student,
I have a curiosity.
Yeah.
The first time I saw Arabian Roses, I don't know if it was in one of my festivals or somebody else, but the first thing that I said was like, oh my God, this is Broadway level. Like, I felt there was also a very smart integration of jazz when it comes to the lines. And I think in the belly dance world, especially here in the US, there's specific people that have become very popular precisely from doing group choreography. Here in Miami, we have Kelly Rodriguez. In LA, we have people like Gilina that, they have developed these beautiful theatrical productions. But in your work, I find like a very distinguished way of choreographing groups that I have not seen it before. So I was wondering about your choreography inspirations, because I have the sensation that you probably got more choreography inspiration from other dance styles. And
Yes, so great.
Am I
Yes.
correct or
yeah,
not?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the first time I think you saw us was at Middle Eastern Mosaic, and and I'll never forget that, because when you came up to me and you told me some of these things, it meant so much to me. It meant so much to me, because I also kind of get that a little bit from you, in this like kind of like a kindred spirit. You kind of borrow from different dance forms, so that meant and you are just phenomenal. So it meant so much to me. So, but yes, so I do constantly borrow from jazz. I do constantly borrow, I guess, from the Broadway or cruise ship kind of entertainment. A lot of times I focus a lot, in terms of the visuals, I focus a lot at what's happening above their heads. So that it creates a really big dynamic look that looks larger than life, which is it's just a big thing borrowed from Broadway, so that's for sure. It's one thing that I always really wanted to aim for, that people would see a performance and go, wow, I've never seen anything like that before. It always, and sometimes it's risky, because when you're dealing with such an old and authentic dance form, it's a little risky. Maybe it might not be for everyone. But I always enjoy finding new ways to use a prop. I enjoy new ways to use the body or to use the hips. I enjoy that. For me, it's, it's creation. As an artist, you want to evolve constantly. You want to kind of push the boundaries and push the envelope a little bit. And I find myself doing that a lot with choreography. And yes, I borrow from all kinds of dance forms, especially since for a long time, the Arabian Roses did a lot of large-scale dance competitions. So you would see all kinds of dance forms from like all over the world, and all this, and a lot of jazz, So I would, of course, some of this is so beautiful. You do walk away inspired one way or another. You do, So, and I would sometimes borrow from those things, and some of them are silly, and some of them, I kind of love that freedom to experiment.
That's so special that you touched upon that topic real quick. That could be a even bigger topic, but the risk that we take appropriation,
Right.
those questions that we get, and that it's such an ancient, it's an art form, and it's old, and it has its history, but also because we're in the West, and then you specifically, you're influenced by so many other dance forms. You're multidisciplined. I mean, it's not just dance, it's singing, it's performance, it's acting. And then you fuse all of that. You take that risk, but you fuse it into your choreographies, and they just come out amazing. And then, your voice starts to come out of all of this. You keep it very respectful, but your voice starts to come out of all of that, in the choreographies that you teach and then you perform, and even your solo performances too. It's all like really, really harmonic combination of elements and disciplines. So yeah, we take a risk, but I mean, it's nice. It's kind of, it's interesting. We learn more about ourselves and also the art form. Yeah. I'm enthralled. I'm just like, I'm here like damn.
Yeah, it's just a new way of looking at it.
You're so interesting, Yesenia.
Oh, thank you.
I'm like, I just want to get my pen and start taking notes.
Me too. I'm like learning so much. I'm like, damn.
Alexandra, I never felt her so quiet. She's so attentive right now.
One thing I've always wanted to do, and Alexandra has suggested this once, but I've just never found, the opportunity to organize it, is I would love to do like a choreography workshop, but I just never had.
Okay, we'll make it happen.
We'll make it happen, girl.
No problem.
For me, I'm the opposite. It's very difficult for me to think in groups. It's something that I usually challenge myself.
Yeah.
But I am a solo dancer.
I mean,
like,
it did not start off that way for me.
Oh.
It was trial and error. Yeah.
Tell me.
For sure.
Yeah,
When I
tell
first started, it really was, choreographing as like a soloist and just multiplying it times however many students. It started off as what I would do, and what I would put it there, as I think a lot of us teachers do, so I think that's why we see so many groups are very reflective of the teacher. I love that though. You can always tell who choreographs what. I love it. And so it was like that. And it was through working with all these amazing dance teachers that I started to go, hey, I like how she does that, and I like how she does that, and I kind of made a little bit of a happy mix there. And then of course, like I said, Broadway to me was always really interesting. That was something that for a while there, I did dance a little bit of jazz when I was in high school. And I think that had I started off much earlier, because with jazz and things, you really have to start off at a really young age. So I think if I had started off much earlier, I think I would have been really happy being like a musical theater choreographer. I love that stuff. So and I was able to also work with musical theater choreographers, and through there I kind of started to learn a little bit, and in high school we had, I was in show choir, and the show choir had this choreographer, Adriel Garcia, who also wasn't really a dancer. He was a singer, but he was great at polishing, and I learned a lot about polishing through him, So little by little, I started to kind of remember, I remember how he would do that. And I remember, and I would put little things together until one day, it really started to work. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. It took a bit. Yeah.
I have another question.
Yeah, go for it.
We're going out of the format, like.
I'm gonna have to rewatch this and
Yeah.
take notes.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's
god,
so
it's
informative.
So good. I've
It's
never
like-
been this intense with you with conversations
Thank
with
you.
Yesenia.
And we've known each other forever. Yeah.
I want to go back to lighting.
Okay. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Because I feel we belly dancers, because our own training and the relationship of this dance with the spaces, right? We're usually performing either in the stage of the festival, or either it's the restaurant or the hafla. And one of my best friends that is also like my manager when we do the Divinis Law Affair, when we want to implement lighting, that I feel for many of us it's a new subject and a very complex one. What's the importance of lighting when we're trying to do theatrical performances?
Yeah. So there is kind of, there is very basic rules, obviously your blues are sadder, things like that. Obviously the darker it is, the grimmer situation is going to feel, and so forth, which obviously a lot of people pretty much get, by common sense. So, but then some of it really is, figuring out, starting to learn, because sometimes it's hard to pick up a little bit if you're not in theater for a long time, what is properly lit and what is not.
Yes.
So, and that takes a little bit of getting used to. So, and that comes a lot, at least from us. We have, in theater, you have an entire day dedicated to just tech.
Set up the lighting, yeah.
And it's literally like you're there an entire 10 hours, and so that you can block every single thing. Obviously, in our world, we don't have that kind of time, so we do. Right. That's what it is. That's what it comes down to, right? Is money, So maybe Belly Dance Evolution does, I don't know. Right. So, but yeah. So what makes it kind of hard is, at least when I did the lighting, was trying to do that on the fly. Right. Like, and it's, and kind of realizing and trying to predict, she's going stage, downstage right. I need to make sure that's lit. Okay. So things like that, you kind of have to start to predict a little bit, which is a little bit hard when you're brand new to the system like I was that day. But, that's one thing that I guess you pick up on, a little, as you also kind of like a drummer, right? Kind of like a drummer, you have to predict almost what she's about to do, right? You kind of have to do the same thing with lighting when you're doing it on the fly like that.
And like lighting also provides, like it changes the silhouettes of the bodies completely.
Yeah.
Like you can have, and for example, for my solo, that
was so amazing. Oh my God, that was so amazing. I want to see that on video.
I wanted this sepia looking. So we went for the ambers, and I told you we connected so well for that.
Yeah,
I told you I want to work with lights and shadows. So I wanted it for moments for you to tone down the lights into a certain level that only people could see like the silhouette.
And it was gorgeous.
And it was gorgeous.
And you did that so well too, because a lot of that time when you would have a lot of that silhouette stuff, you were usually upstage. So it worked so perfectly to capture your silhouette. And then I would turn down the light a little bit so that it would pick up that silhouette, and then you would move and downstage, and I would put up the lights, and and it really, and again, one thing I made sure to do, which again I think is pretty basic, but you never know, I made sure to listen to every single song before. I listened to it from start to finish to make sure that if there was something that all of a sudden went a lot more pensive, I would know to at least switch the lights there, So, and with yours, I already knew the song. I'd heard it before and I knew it from then on. And then with your intro, I understood the gravitas or where it was headed. So that helped a lot. And when you told me the word sepia, I was like, oh, I got it. I know. I got what you mean. That's it. Like, yeah. And it really was great. Because initially I was thinking blues because it's sadder. But when you said that sepia, I was like, oh, okay.
No, give me that gold sepia. I love it. It's one of my favorite colors to see on stage.
No, and it really was just, and because you were wearing the black dress and everything. Yeah, it was probably the most gorgeous thing that I felt that I've ever done tech-wise. So it really was great.
Cameras work well with those lightings too. Cameras don't work well with red.
Right.
But with the other ones, like the cooler tones, and then a little bit of like the ambers, not too red, they work. So that one photographed very well, because then I edited the videos after, and I saw some of the photos, and that's that. So from my perspective as a photographer / editor, those were really good colors to work with.
Yeah, red, you have to have a really good purpose to use red. Yeah, because it normally doesn't. And some people think of red as happy. Like I've heard that before. People tell me, oh, give me red. I want something happy. That doesn't come off very happy. Like I get why you think red, because you think of a red dress.
Yeah.
And you think party. But lighting doesn't come off that way. It comes off kind of scary.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Right. So you have to, it's also about.
For me, it's danger.
Right, exactly. It comes off alarming, right? Which is why we use a stop sign. Why it's red,
It's red.
So you have to also learn to not think of color the way you would normally do on an object. You have to think about it, as an atmosphere. So, which is different.
Freaking gem of our community right here.
Oh God.
Jessie.
So we're gonna move on to this question. What is special about creating dance with other bodies? We're going to go back a little bit into choreography and performing.
Well, that you can't, there's certain things that you cannot do with one body that you can do with many. And that is something that's always very important to me, that I do that. As I always have, I make sure that, okay, this is something a soloist could not pull off, a visual, a trick, whatever may be the case. So and that always to me is very exciting, because I feel like the options are endless, with bodies, and there's always something new to discover. And then sometimes it's a very, just like choreographing for yourself, it's a very organic process. So sometimes, like let's say a girl might do something slightly different than what I planned, but then you see it and you're like, oh, because I'm never too big to think, oh no, it has to be my way. Sometimes a girl will do in a certain way. You're like, wait a second, I like it like that.
Oh my God, that happens to me a
A
lot.
lot. I'm very spontaneous.
Me too.
So it's like one day I'll change from here to there. So but yeah, and I see it and it just works, you know, and it's certain things that, which again, if I was choreographing, let's say for myself or for one body, you might not have that experience happen as often, you know. So it's a really, you know, or it's a really collaborative process, which is also really, really, really nice.
Speaking of collaboration, so it kind of goes into the next question. The Arabian Roses, that's a huge project for you that you've been working on for a while. You direct it. Who are they and what's their origin story or their belly dance story?
So a few of them are, I mean, they're really a troupe that has grown up with me. So I've had them since I was about 20 or 21, something like, I think 21, and I'm 34 now. So it's been a ride, and I have learned the bulk of my lessons with them. So we've grown up together. It's like we both went from being babies to, you know, to being full-grown adults together. They were started at that small theater, Goodlet Theater in Hialeah, and it was I never thought it was going to be something that was going to last, you know, 10 plus years. I thought, okay, this is something. It started because I started teaching belly dance, and as I started to get into my niche, the classes became very popular, and it eventually got to the place where, because the classes are subsidized by the city of Hialeah, so they're dirt cheap, or at least they were. I'm not sure how they are now. They were, but again, the instructors involved were still giving the same effort and the same kind of care that they would, you know, if they were charging $15 a class. So, which was the standard back then. And so, of course, parents very quickly understood the advantage that they were being given getting these classes close to free, and, you know, and being able for their kids to be able to get that kind of training.
Quality.
Right. You know, it was a really amazing experience. So it eventually got to the place where, for at least for the belly dance classes and a couple, you know, one or two other classes, parents started to wait hours for when registration would open, and then that became a night. Wow. And then that became, at the end when I left, it was 2 nights that they would wait in line for these classes. Right, which was crazy. You know, like you would go outside and it looked like the new PlayStation was being, you know, released, because everybody's there with their little throws and their beach chairs. Yeah, it was crazy, you know. And so because of that popularity, the dance teacher, Ariella, she suggested that, why don't you start a team, you know? And I was like, I don't know, because a team at that time was so not heard of, you know? So I was like, a
team.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know, you know? And then she said, yeah, think about it, you can go to dance competitions. And I'm thinking, I'm like, do belly dancers even go to dance competitions? Like the ones that she was referring to, I mean, you know? And then she goes, well, you can be the first one. And I'm like, all right, let's do it, you know? And the girls got really serious, and they took a summer of taking multiple belly dance classes and technique classes to be able to then the following semester announce the team. And they helped me choose the name. I was stuck between, you know, 2 names, I think it was. I cannot remember the other name. I'm not going to lie, Desert Rose was like the first song I ever danced to, so that's what I was going for with that, but I knew I couldn't do Desert Roses.
That's a good song.
Yeah. So it was like a lot to me, you know. So so that's what okay, then the alternative, you know, Arabian Roses, and the girls, I had them vote and they chose that name. And I thought, okay, I'll do this until I graduate and, you know, and I leave here. But then when I was leaving, they weren't ready to let go and they wanted to follow me. So I asked the director of the theater at the time, can I take the name, you know, since it's, you know, and he said, yes, you know, he was really sweet. So he's like, yes, there will never be another team like the Arabian Roses. He's a really sweet guy. His name's Luis Fernandez. And so that was sweet. And yeah, so then I said, okay, well, you guys are going to follow me to a studio. Again, I did not think it was going to last, because I thought that the price difference was going to be really shocking coming from, you know, where they were. And yeah, and here we are. And I always thought, because I didn't have beginner classes the way that I did there, I thought, where am I going to pull from later? This is going to eventually
fade.
Moved them
Wow.
to another studio.
Like not to belong to another studio, but I started renting space.
Okay.
So, and yeah.
And sorry to interrupt you. The competitions that you took them to, these were not specifically belly dance events. These were, what were they?
They were like Star Power, Next Star. Okay. They were the like big dance competitions that are huge. And I mean, I don't even know how many hundreds of groups there. And
you've won several.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think these competitions are also like very focused more on kids and younger.
Right. Yeah. So that's eventually as the girls started to grow up with me, that's why we stopped doing that. A, they kind of grew out of it. And B, they became literally too old, and there is an adult category, but nobody competes in those adult categories. So you're kind of guaranteed the win. And so for me, it's not worth it. Yeah, why do it? Just for the trophy. So yeah. But at the time, you would see maybe jazz groups that would have a Shakira song, but you didn't see belly dance troops. So what we were doing was brand new, and it was, I remember the feedback because they were, they have money, so they would record their feedback in real time along with your performance, the judges, which was great. I learned a lot from that. Yeah, I learned a lot from that.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, if only, So and they would never knew what to call the props. They would call them drapery and like the veils and stuff. So, but they were, and it was nice because sometimes you would hear them gasp at, at certain moments,
like with the sword. Or
so
something.
Right, yeah, or just certain like visuals you would create, you would hear them, and it was really sweet. It was always fun to watch, but I also learned a whole lot from them because they would give, very, very great dance feedback, which a lot of times as a belly dancer, you're not used to hearing. You have to kind of go to, a more classically trained teacher in order to be able to get that kind of feedback, or Western trained teacher to get that kind of feedback. And so to be able to get that really was very valuable also. I hate competitions, by the way, so I hate the because even if you do everything you can to teach the kids, hey, this doesn't matter, it's just a person's opinion, we're just here to get the learning experience, to get the feedback, and to open up this world of belly dance to students who, I remember at the time, most people I knew in the classical dance world, they had very negative opinions of what belly dance was. So I always felt it was very nice to educate people as to what the beauty can be. So but still, if there would be a moment that a girl would drop a sword or something, they would still go off crying. And I didn't like that kind of pressure, that it would instill on these girls.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the competition and how that works as a good incentive for young audiences, but I imagine that also comes with the good and bad. Yeah.
And it comes from the teacher, because I have seen, I did see once a competition that wasn't my own. It was a somebody else's musical theater competition. And I remember the teacher, after they lost, she was outside, super angry with the students, and they were crying, and it was this big old show. And that's what I always found so toxic about competition.
That's so toxic. That's the word.
Do you know what it is to spend months and months working your butt off on a
for
number
this outcome.
For that outcome, for you guys to be out there crying and stuff? I hated it. I didn't like it. That's why you have to be careful too who the teacher is. I've seen horror stories too. But I've also seen really great stories. And again, I think the important thing I always try to instill in the girls is that we're really here to educate an audience who maybe has never seen belly dance before, especially when you go up north. And we're here just for that feedback that we won't get anywhere else, So that really is the reason why we're there. So, but young girls take things so hard. So it is a challenge.
There's no crying in baseball.
Yeah.
It's from a League of Their Own.
Love that movie. It's Tom Hanks.
No,
okay.
That's part of your bond, your inner jokes.
Yeah.
Inside jokes. Ready?
Yeah, you're the next one. We're so into
it.
Yeah. Scratch this.
So, where do you see them in the future, the Arabian Roses?
Oh boy. I mean, I would like if you told me don't put a glass, ceiling on your, on your dreams, I would love to do like a Jelena, belly dance evolution thing. I would love it. I would love to have a full length show of, with a theme or story. And then short term, I would just, we're still reeling from the pandemic, so I would just kind of like to take off where we left off short term.
We're still in post-pandemic times.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm. So the Arabian Roses, the performance for Belly Dance Stories, that was like a mini quick collaboration that we did. Mm-hmm. And the message of this collaboration, so this question was posed by Val for both of us.
Okay.
But I'm asking it. So what was the message of this collaboration? You could start off.
Okay.
Start off with how it came out, and then I'll just, free flow, jump in, whatever.
So the message to me was community. I think it's so important, and I think sometimes it's lost, especially in a dance industry, So I think competition is very natural for performers. So I really kind of wanted to send out a message, especially since you and I don't work together anymore in the capacity that we used to, which was Belly Motions. I really wanted to kind of send out a message to audiences and to my own students. I really, really want to make sure that there's a good example being set for them, that, we're all in this for the same reason. We are all here because we love the dance form. There's no reason why anybody shouldn't be friends or kind to each other, and everybody's on their own different journey. So I think that to me was a reason why I wanted to collaborate, and I would love to collaborate again. I think we need more of that. And I think we've seen it in the industry get lost before. So I never want to be a part of that, hopefully. And it's hard because sometimes, when certain things happen to you, you do get kind of wrapped up in it a little bit. It is hard, and it is, at least for me, it's hard for me not to take things super personal. So I am a little bit of a grudgeful person. So, and not to say that Alexandra's never, ever, we've always been, but, I think I'm at a place, especially post-pandemic, where I'm trying to just be positive. And I think now that we're able to take the belly dance community into our own hands, I think it's such a powerful message to be able to see two groups from two totally different spaces being able to collaborate. I think it's such an important message.
Yeah, two different spaces. Now was before we were, working under the same studio, and so I remember thinking about so Yessie, we invited Yessie to our first Belly Dance Stories, and you had the idea that you wanted to do the sword choreography, and then I was like, oh man, I was planning on the sword choreography too. How can we make this work? I didn't want you guys to totally, and it was short notice too, because Belly Dance Stories, like we talked about it in the first episode, that the timeline was April to August. That's it. So actually May to August for most of you guys. And so that was one part that I didn't want to, I wanted to collaborate. I said, well, you know what? Let's just make it work. Let's do a collaboration. Yessie and I worked flawless together. Like there's no problem. And I know that we can somehow figure out how to put both, have them separated, and then somehow connect them together. And so the voiceovers that we did together, the audio, the introductions is what I'm trying to say. The intros are one element that attached them, that connected them together. And then the ending where my group comes back as your backdrop. No, hold on a second. In between my choreography and yours starts the transition. There was a transition in the middle of each. And then when yours finished, then mine came back in the end and posed everything together. And actually, I have the book here that I wanted to open it up and kind of pinpoint some of the things that we both said, and we collaborated together on what we were going to say. We were the beginning of chapter 2.
Mm-hmm.
Where am I? There's Val. Wow. Hey, Val. And here we go. So we had titled it A Woman's Might. You had titled it, actually. I'm like, yeah, we'll go with that. That's awesome. And then my idea for mine was like, okay, the sword is a metaphor. It's a symbol of strength. And you also had thought the same, similar ideas. The sword is a strength and about a symbol of strength and balance. And I said here, that's weathering any storm that comes our way. And then these are metaphors that we take from our dance into the world, and we use them with other people, whether we know it or not. They're always going to be, because of dance, these little things that we do, and we connect with our students, and then the students connect with each other. These are things that we take. So I think it was a really good way to kind of emphasize my sword choreo with yours and emphasize them together to express that how do I say that message? Yeah. And then you talked about group choreography as an empowering collaboration, a process that provokes the creative warrior within each of us. So we played around with text and with words in the intros, and that was part of our collaboration, which was super cool to work on something that was not just dance, that it was an additional element. So that was really cool. I had a lot of fun with that. And yeah, do you have any questions for us about that?
I mean, I didn't know any of this. Okay, so I'm here, like, absorbing, and also, thinking about the importance of example, also of our teaching skills, and not necessarily saying things to our students. And I'm brainstorming a little bit about that competitive aspect of woman nature.
Yes.
That I don't know if it's imposed from society. I don't know if it really comes from us. That's another podcast. But definitely it makes sense that through the practice, right, you guys are representing also a different way of leading, also a different pedagogical way, also like the collaboration. I think they're very hard.
Yes.
Like, yes, they can run smooth, but it requires a lot of
give and take,
negotiation. They're not easy. They're not easy because it's not like you can choose whatever you want. You're trying to, reconcile, or like trying to make things work together. And I think you guys did that majestic work with this, and like the way you guys are explaining these metaphors and how this dynamic also has an impact also in real life, because in real life it's like that also.
Right.
I think like collaborating is so difficult for human beings in general, and we had the biggest test. I think it was the pandemic. Like, we couldn't agree with anything, and we're still going through that situation. So I think the practice of creating this piece, especially post-pandemic, it's so special.
And I want to add that the reason why I think community is such an important message is I think a lot of us especially in the small industry of the belly dance industry, we wouldn't be where we're at if it wasn't because someone said, hey, you're talented and I believe in you, and come with me to do
For
this
sure.
thing.
Yeah.
The support.
So both of you have at some point lent me some sort of a hand, forward and up. And it's meant the world to me. So I think sometimes and this is to me, sometimes we can forget how important and how beautiful those moments are, and we can get very wrapped up in some of that competitiveness, and maybe it might not be competitiveness you started, but all of a sudden you're being, you're getting wrapped up in it. And I think one thing that for me the pandemic really did was that it taught me that I don't want to, things can be so chill and, you know, and beautiful and peaceful, you know, and I think it's so important that we continue to just help each other out and help each other up.
Yeah.
For sure. You know, again, wouldn't be here or have had the kind of opportunities that I had if someone had, if there weren't dancers like you guys who never felt the need to compete with me or my students. On the contrary, you said, wow, let me show you it off at this, you know, at this event, you know, let me help you out. And I think that was something that was, you know, really important. And again, that's every show, right? Every show you're helping out somebody, helping somebody step out into the limelight, you know? And I think that is something that I'm very proud of, that I really definitely felt at Belly Dance Stories, but there was a real sense of community, and there was a real sense of, hey, I want you to shine, and I want you to, reach your full potential. And there was a lot of cheering each other on, and that kind of just beautiful, positive atmosphere that I just think is so important, that I really feel a lot in this post-pandemic world, like this industry now, you know? So I also think that's why community was a very important message. So I know that when Alexandra had mentioned that this was a story about women, you know, I thought it really, you know, when she came up with the idea of to maybe try to collaborate, I thought, wow, what a great message that would be, you know, especially for women, like you're saying, because yeah, obviously it's rampant among dancers, but yeah, it does happen among a lot of women in general, the competitive nature, you know. So, and I mean, we should be helping each other out. That's what we should be doing.
And also, I think we have to change that negative perspective of competition too. I think there's very healthy ways to compete. For example, when I did the invitation to Alexandra, we were basically the two-person teaching in a very similar way, right? We were renting spaces. So she was basically my competition.
Right.
So Belly Dance Stories is basically a collaboration with two people that are competition. But at the same time, what works is that I push her and she pushes me. You know, I want my work to be as competent.
Right, you want to keep up.
As hers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I got to keep up too.
You know,
I mean,
so
it's healthy.
So you have so much to learn from your competitor that I feel dancers sometimes see it in a negative way, that we're just saying, okay, I have to compete because I have to be best than this person. And it's not necessarily about that.
No.
You know, it's about learning how to, you know, see the other person, right, doing something different than you, and using that information also to recognize what are the things that you can bring to the table.
Again, I wouldn't be here if I went into my Gula job thinking, I'm a belly dancer, so I already know what I need to know. I use that moment to say, wow, these teachers are great teachers and they have these things to offer. Let me learn from them. And I think it's a beautiful picture right now, because all three of us sitting here, we are each other's competition.
Yeah,
we are. We all pretty much do the same.
That word doesn't exist in my vocabulary.
Right,
though,
exactly.
But I get what you're saying for sure. I get it. Though for me, it's more like a collaboration. It's either we collaborate or you're just someone else that I don't, you know, contact. Even though you might do the same work that I do, I just don't think about you. I mean, you know, but I also was brought up with 3 other siblings. And my parents were always like, well, they never said it, you know, in our faces, but you're not each other's competition.
Right.
So I personally, my story is that I didn't grow up like in a competitive atmosphere.
Great. Yeah.
I didn't know what that was. I don't feel like that. So that word is not in my vocabulary.
Right.
But I do understand what you guys are saying for sure.
Yeah. Because because there's a couple of ways to look at it, right? And it all depends on whether you look at it as glass half full or glass half empty. You can see it as that's my financial competition, or you can see it that is an artist that I can learn from. You know,
that's how I see it.
You can see it as one or the other. We all 3 have shared students, you know, so and it's a great thing, you know, I think, because they come out with all these beautiful nuggets, and because we're all so different, right? So I think that, and that's the way that you can look at things.
I think we're also fortunate right now that we don't have schools that we are under, regulatory kind of situations under, which is what happened in our. Well, that's probably another podcast, Miami belly dance history. But
the dynamic changes.
Yeah.
the dynamic totally changed. Yeah, after
There's
the
no
pandemic.
filter.
Flipped.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
Totally.
Yeah. And like I mentioned, it's just, and then I also, and it's just also about that pebble that you throw in and the ripple that it forms, because it's so easy right now. If, of course, if right now a dancer burns you, it's easy for you to, to cut off that, that sense of
Like they're there.
right,
But now they're not there.
Right. It's easy, to do that because you think, wow, I don't want to get burned again, So I think it's also about that. I think it's so important to, I know this is like an elementary school teaching, but it really is about just treat others the way you would want to be treated.
Simple.
We have to keep
It's so
reminding
simple.
ourselves that,
It's so simple,
Simple.
and I think it could be a beautiful thing. That's why I, as far as I know, there was no, we both have had events and there's been no drama, when I feel like it's so easy sometimes at these shows to get drama because, it gets a little bit, some people get a little bit out of hand. And I think it's just all about that. It's just treat others the way you would want to be treated. And then, and it's just smooth sailing from there. Because if you don't, then that little pebble is going to make a ripple and it's going to just go off into this whole branch of just, problems that maybe aren't needed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna mention something that Simon says. He's a good friend of ours and a mentor. And he's always saying, give back to the art, give back to the art. And that's kind of what Belly Dance Stories is for me.
Right.
And also collaborations is me and us giving back in some form, because there's many ways to give back to the art form. And that's, for me, collaborating with you.
Keeping the focus. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the focus.
Yeah. So I think it's also important.
Okay, ladies, I'm gonna go for the last question because it seems like we can stay here for
a long time.
And I'm enjoying so much this, and I would like to continue
great.
talking, but I know myself.
I told Alexandra, I have to condense.
Okay.
I told you.
Last question. Okay, last one. Okay, everybody here, okay.
Yeah.
You have so much experience with young dancers. Okay. What wisdom will you like to share with our listeners?
Don't take things personal.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's so simple.
Bam.
They're going through their own battles, which we have surpassed, and now we don't maybe put as much importance as they do. So just, be there for them and let them, develop as they need to, and just don't take it personal as you go. Yeah. And trust me, that's advice I still struggle to give myself. So, but I'm hoping to preach, even though I still am learning to take the advice myself. Yeah.
It's so difficult.
It's always a practice. It's a practice. Yeah. That's how it becomes a habit, and we want to create good habits. So we just have to keep practicing it.
It's such an important habit. I will say that I feel it's one of the reasons why I have succeeded as an artist is that, and like I am so thankful to Nancy Morales, my mother, that always guide me on this direction. Never had my mom, if I ever told her that I had a conflict with somebody, feed me.
Right.
On that conflict. She's like, no, you gotta understand yourself in her position. She will never fuel my mind on any type of story that I was trying to create on another person. And it's so refreshing also when you see lives through that lens, and you start, also seeing the other one with compassion and giving them space to react on however they need to react, and not necessarily take it personal. Keeping your focus, boom, that's it. That's all you need. So I think we're ready to say bye. This has been amazing, Yesenia.
This was fun.
Yeah, thanks so much, Yessie.
There's so much powerful information that you just shared with us right now. So An honor to have you here. An honor to have been working with you. Can't wait to see you doing that theatrical production.
She just directed. We forgot to say.
Yeah,
she just
Mystic
directed
Night.
her first full theater show, Mystic Night. Man, I can't believe it. We forgot to mention that, but there you go.
Yeah.
So hopefully, cheers to the next ones. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're not interrupting me. You're like, yeah, we forgot about Mystic Night, so.
Sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate the shout out.
Yes. Are you planning to do it next year?
Yes. And I'm
Nice.
hoping, of course, you learn from the last one
Claro.
and you'll apply it to the next one, and hopefully, it'll continue to just get better and better.
I love that you brought people to Hialeah to see a
Yeah.
theatrical production. And I
Yeah.
mentioned this to
that's
you, and
big.
it's such a
Right.
important aspect because Hialeah here in Miami is usually tend to be a city where people are always making joke of
Exactly.
it. And like,
Yeah.
it's such an important community work that
Yes.
you're also doing with this production.
And for us, it was very important because that was our birthplace. So there really was something just super, it was like some sort of bit of closure almost. And there was a reminder, I think, to just appreciate things, because then you think about where you came from and where you're at now. And I think it's so easy to lose sight of
God,
that,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
as an artist, at least for me, I'm always looking at how can I, this wasn't as big as I wanted, or wasn't as successful, and you're always looking to make things bigger. But then when you look at the whole picture, you realize, wow, we've done a lot, and I don't think you always have, at least for me, an opportunity to think that way, because I'm always just pushing to do bigger, So it was really, really, at least for us, a really, really nice reflective experience. And it really just was wonderful to see, for us, because we, of course, we love, bringing in all the Oriental, choreographies, but we also really like to experiment with, more fusion. So that gave us the opportunity to do a little bit more of that. And it really was very, very cool, I think, to get together so many artists that were so different. It was really a neat thing. And I loved it. I loved everything that I saw. It was great because every number was super different. It was a really, really nice experience. And I loved it. I didn't know, I think, leading up to it, I'm like, I don't think I'm doing this again because it's so much stress. But then afterwards you get the payoff. And really, isn't that what all performing arts is? You're always like, you don't know that you can handle it. You don't know you can handle it. And then the moment comes that you hit the stage and then you're like, oh, that was amazing. I want more of it.
I want to do it again. I want to do it again.
That's what all
And then you're freaking out
performances-
again.
Yeah.
And then you're like, constantly.
There's this
Yeah.
beautiful quote that I don't know the exact quote, but it's something like, you never stop being terrified of being on stage. You just get comfortable with the feeling. So,
For sure.
For sure, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Yessie, again, and thank you so much to everybody for listening and watching. Stay tuned for the next one.
Bye. So, if you guys like what you saw and heard, make sure you're following us in Instagram at
Belly Dance Stories,
and subscribe also to our YouTube channel,
Belly Dance
Belly Dance
Stories.
Stories. So we keep it super easy for you. You can find more information about our next theatrical production at www.bellydancestories.com.
Belly Dance Stories.
Okay? So
You can also email us if you have any questions at
bellydancestories@gmail.com. Easy peasy. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Share it if you like it. Share it.